Hello there, thank you for staying with us and welcome to another edition of Channels Beam. I'm Victor Mathias. Now, the 2023 election has come and gone with Nigerians making the decision by choosing those who will lead them for the next 4 years. However, this election has left in its trail mixed reactions, with some hailing the process while others have faulted the conduct of the polls. On the show today, we will take a look at how events unfolded during the polls as well as the aftermath. But before we do that, let's first of all take a look at the trending topics in the past week.
Former Deputy President of the Senate, Ike Ekweremadu, is at risk of being sentenced to 10 years imprisonment in line with the Modern Slavery Act 2015 of the United Kingdom after a London court found him and his wife, Beatrice, guilty of organ trafficking. Following the guilty verdict, Mr. Ekweremadu and his wife were remanded in custody and await sentencing on May the 5th. Muslim faithful in Nigeria joined their counterparts around the world to begin fasting as the moon, which signals the beginning of the month of Ramadan, was sighted. They prayed for peace during and after the process as Nigerians just concluded the general elections, which was keenly contested by political parties.
Well, there you go. Those were the trends in the past week. But joining us to look at today's topic, we have with us right here in the Lagos studio, Ayobami Ladipo. He is the CEO of Posh Classy Media, as well as a social commentator. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. We also have joining us from our Abuja studio, Hamzat Lawal. He is the CEO of Connected Development. Hamzat, it's a pleasure to have you join us on the show as well today. We also have joining us via Zoom from New York in the United States, Kolade Kaede. He is a cybersecurity professional with a demonstrated history of working in the information technology, banking services, and retail industry. It's a pleasure to have you join us on the show, Kolade. Well, kickstart the conversation for us. Of course, I'm sure we'll get to hear from Hamzat and Kolade in just a moment. But kickstart the conversation for us. I mean, the conduct of the elections, you know, the deployment of technology, you know, the use of the IREV. How did it all go for you?
Okay, so the 2023 election has come and gone, actually. But so if we're going to score INEC, I think INEC can do better, but definitely not below average. So I would analyze this based on probably even from my own area,
units?
the polling units, the whole area, Koshofe, the arrival of INEC officials, the materials, then the collation of results, the transmission of results. I'll use my polling unit for an example. Election started around 9 a.m. INEC officials
so for presidential and National Assembly, or
for presidential and the gubernatorial,
yeah.
it was well coordinated. It was peaceful. Even on the presidential day, we had foreign observers that came in, about 4 to 5 Prado SUVs that came in to assess the conduct of the poll. It was peaceful 100%. Then the INEC officials were responsible and they did their job the right way. Now, the results were transmitted because when they were done, we're trying to upload results. I remember that the officials would have issues with uploading, will get a certain percentage, maybe about 78, and they would stop. Then we had to get Wi-Fi. People had to bring Wi-Fi to support, then eventually transmit results, then go to, even while transmitting, even with the other Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi from electorates, they still had issues till we had to go to the collation center. And during the whole process was, I would say it was just a bit hectic after elections. That's the transmitting of results, uploading of those results. But was it rough? Was it chaotic? No.
All right, so where would you have preferred to see INEC? Because you said INEC could have done better. Now, you've listed one, which is where we had issues with transmission of the results. Where else do you think people should have done better, or INEC should have done better?
Okay, so for INEC, I would say that since you're introducing BVAS, since it's a technology-based election, INEC needs to up its game to make it more seamless. I think that's just it. It was seamless with the fact that accreditation and voting was done simultaneously. It wasn't the days where you accredit, then you go back, then you come back to vote. At the moment you're accrediting, you're voting. But for the uploading of results, I think that's where we had a bit of issues. So uploading of results should be done according to INEC regulation. So we don't have the back and forth of, must they upload results immediately, or then INEC coming out to say, no, it is only INEC that has the final say on the transmission of results. So I think if we're going into 2027, that's still about 4 years now.
We have some elections coming up.
Yeah, we still have a rerun.
Yeah.
So these things should be sorted out. There should be a final say as to how the elections will go, transmission of results. Those things should be clearly spelled out.
All right, let me quickly go to Abuja studio where we have Hamzat Lawal. Hamzat, again, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. But I mean, you were pretty much on the field. You deployed, personnel with Uzabe and all of that. What were your experiences? What did you see on the field that you would like to see differently? Maybe in the rerun, and also that's in Adamawa and Kebia, or maybe in the future.
Well, thank you, Victor, for having me. Sure. The presidential and National Assembly elections were marred with logistical challenges. But first, let's even reflect and start from 1999, 2003, 2007, 2011, and 2015 elections. See, we've made progress. Yes, not as much as we would like to see. But come to think of it, we used to have election in the days where before people even go out to queue to cast their vote, results are already out. But with BVAS, what it has helped us to do was to check over voting and also help for authentication and accreditation. For me, we deployed 20,000 observers with USAB and also forming alliance with media organization and civil society group. I casted my ballot in Opogoro Denku ward under Okene local government in Kogi State. The presidential and National Assembly election, the BVAS failed for about 10 minutes. And it was reset and then it worked perfectly. But, for the gubernatorial and state assembly elections, INEC actually did well because, most of the polling units we observe election, we got report that over 80% of them, they got to this polling unit on time. So logistically, technology-wise, and even the upload of results, INEC did very well. But then there were security challenges. Two of our observers even got beaten up, one in Ebonyi State and the other one in Lagos State. But I'm glad that they're recuperating and feeling better now. So I think that we need to understand that there are 4 critical players in elections. You have INEC, you have security agencies, you have politicians, and most importantly, you have the electorate. I think that the electorate fared very well, because if you look at voter turnout, and I still argue with the 27% voter turnout for presidential election, it's more than that, because INEC did not get to this polling unit in good time. So people with disability, pregnant women, and older people had to go back, citing insecurity. So again, I think that the fact that even INEC postponed the gubernatorial and state assembly election by 1 week really helped to douse that tension and for INEC to really prepare and then, provided a seamless election. But we need little human interference. We saw where party agents were trying to interfere with the process when they were not leading in the polls. We saw where security agencies did not deploy adequately, where had hoodlums and political talk, attack electorate in some polling unit across the country. Yeah. So again, I think as we go into, off-season elections, later this year we have election in Kogi State and a few other states, and into 2027 election, we need to properly integrate technology where we would ensure that whatever platform is being deployed, people can see results in real time, people in diaspora will also have a voice, because people in diaspora did not participate in this election. So maybe as we go into 2027 and as we constitute the 10th National Assembly, these are some of the reform we would like to see, but also unbundling INEC. And what do I mean? How does the chairman of INEC, the national commissioners, and the resident electoral commissioners, how do they get appointed, and how do we screen these people to ensure that they have the competence, the capacity to undertake this task without any political leaning? Because see, if we say the institution must be independent, the people who are in this institution must also show that they have no political favoritism.
All right, Hamza, one of the things that you made mention of, first of all, sorry about the observers that, were manhandled. And of course, also sorry to all Nigerians who, witnessed such behavior from hoodlums and thugs. But, in your interactions with INEC as, civil society, I know you interact with them. You've monitored elections in the past. Like you said, let's go back to 1999. But I know actively you've been monitoring elections since 2015. And I know you also, write reports, engage with INEC. And I'm wondering, security has always been a recurring decimal, in all of these elections. Have you, as civil society, in your reports, asked INEC to ensure that, we don't only have one police, because it seems it doesn't even seem, we have only one police officer at every polling unit without a weapon. And when these thugs come, they overpower and overrun just this one person. Have you, in your reports, suggested to INEC, perhaps to include it in the law, that more police officers should be deployed to polling units, and if need be, perhaps in boiling points, should be allowed to carry weapons?
It's a bit tricky, and yes, every quarter, civil society and INEC have a roundtable, and in some cases, we also engage security agencies. For USIB, we actually partnered with a few security agencies to escalate our report and get them to mobilize men. In every polling unit, Victor, you have 2 unarmed security personnel, and we encourage this because when people are armed, as security, they sort of, people feel scared, and we don't want it to lead to voter apathy. So the agreement was that we're going to be perimeter security. So you're going to have armed personnel providing perimeter security. So again, this is our own worries. How did these hoodlums of political talk gain access, mobilize, gain access to polling units, and then leave without much arrest being done? So, and this is, an indictment to our security agencies. So again, we would not advise that security personnel who are deployed to polling units are armed, so that electorate do not feel intimidated or harassed, and then it will lead to voter apathy. But I believe that if they are adequately deployed, the ones with arm and providing perimeter security, then hoodlums and political talk cannot infiltrate polling units just as if they're strolling in and out in causing mayhem. So again, I believe that our report, and when we sit with security agencies and have our roundtable with INEC, and also compare notes with other civil society organizations, we can then better inform what becomes our security management in terms of our electoral management and the role of security to provide efficiently and effectiveness in curbing any electoral violence.
All right, let's hope that happens, sooner rather than later. But let me hold you there for a bit and quickly go to New York, where Kolade Kaide is joining us via Zoom. Again, Kolade, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. But, one of the things that got Nigerians thinking after the presidential elections was the revelation by the minister, of communication, of digital economy, and he talked about how Nigeria survived over 12 million attacks. I mean, as a cybersecurity expert, in your estimation, where would you have said these attacks came from, and what infrastructure, were they looking at?
Okay. Thank you for having me, Victor. Well, straight to your question. There's this back and forth I had with the minister on Twitter, and I made it clear to him that it is practically impossible to have 12 million cyber incidents. That's the word he used. So what they may have might be cyber events. Okay, so everybody has cyber events on a daily basis. At my workplace, I run about 64 million a day. Okay, so a cyber event does not translate to a cyber attack. Okay, every second, every minute, there are infrastructures, there are platforms, there are people who scan the internet. Some are for malicious intention and some are just for data gathering activity. So you will see those probes, we call them probes. You might see those probes and take them to be a cyber attack. No, they may not be a cyber attack. They are just events. So you get to the point of a cyber attack when you have to respond or react to an event. Then you've confirmed that, oh, someone has broken in, or someone is at the verge of breaking in, or someone is taking advantage of this vulnerability within our system. That is when you have an incident. And once you have an incident, you have steps you have to take to prevent or to minimize the damage, to contain the incident, then to that's when your incident response team step in. There's no way you would have even 5 incidents a day. There's no way. That means you have a breach. So there, I think the minister did not get it right. And so what I think he's talking about is cyber event, and this happens on a daily basis. They have the IREV is what's it called? Is a web portal. It's a platform open to the world, to anybody. So if I know what the IP address of the IREF is, or I know the address or whatever, if I scan that address, their own tool will pick it up as, oh, we're having someone pinging this address, or we're having so much traffic on this address, classify that to be, in quote, a cyber attack. No, it might not be a cyber attack. So in that regard, I would just want to make it clear that I don't think the minister chose the right word, because in this industry, the time you give, means a lot to us. So I don't think they are, because it's not possible to deal with. It's just like writing. Can you write 1 million reports a day for each incident? No, you cannot.
Well,
so it's practically impossible to have that. Thank you.
Let me just hold you there for a bit. We need to take a quick break, and of course, I'll still come back to you in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. We still have with us our panelists in the Lagos studio, the Abuja studio, as well as via Zoom from New York, Khalade Kaide. Khalade, again, let me come back to you just before we went on the break. You talked about how, the whole infrastructure works, the right terms to use and the terms not to use, and the possibilities of having, as many attacks in a day. But one of the reasons that Nigerians even had reservations now, so to speak, now was the issue of the BVAS, that INEC officials had issues, uploading here and there, and people were worried. They were thinking, now that we're deploying technology into our electoral system, is the opportunity, not being given to cyber criminals, to make this attack, to perhaps, as we've seen, just to infiltrate the system and change things that are not there. So what's the possibility of that happening? We heard of all of that, in some past elections in some other countries. What was the possibility of that happening here in Nigeria?
Okay, well, you can't rule out the possibility of having an actual cyber attack on the infrastructure. You can't. So the argument we had earlier was about the figure. Fine, but the minister came out to say there was no successful attack on their infrastructure. So we just take his word to that. About the BVAS, from a professional angle and from a security angle, I see things differently. Honestly speaking, I'm going to fault INEC. I think INEC only work with developers without carrying along their security team in designing and implementing the way the BVAS would work. Because I looked at this critically, and what I came to discover is I saw loopholes. And sincerely speaking, the essence of introduction of technology is to reduce election malpractices, to reduce it to the bare minimum. But the way INEC has gone about it, fine, you've only reduced the number of, you've only reduced, like you accredited it, instead of bogus figures. You only reduce those figures, but you left out the most critical part of it, which has to do with the integrity of the data that you are putting out there, that you are recording as what it is. What is the essence of having 3 million people that voted, and that 3 million figure, when it comes to allocation of those figures to each political party, then it is messed up. That is still malpractices. Even if it's 2 people that voted, the right figure should go to the right party. But INEC failed woefully on that. From what the first guest said in the studio there, if you look at it, on the presidential election day, you go on IREF and go and look at the dates that each of those results were submitted. They were submitted at least 2 days after the election. So that alone, I know the matter is in court, but that alone speaks volume. If you go look at this stamp, like we call it the metadata on top of each election, you will see it. And on the governorship in Lagos, I was just going through it. I just laughed. You see election results uploaded before close of polls. You see result uploaded 11 something a.m. on election day, 12 something a.m. on election day. You get it. So from the security angle, that means a lot. It means a lot. You get it. So for me, I think INEC should go sit back and bring in security guys to help them look at the process from beginning to the end and look at their design and see where loopholes are. There is a lot of loophole from the security angle, and it's going to create a lot of legal puzzle. And that's just all I see.
Well, like you said, I mean, the matter is already in court. So hopefully, those who are in court would be able to, take all of that metadata, like you said, and put it forward. Well, let me hold you there for a bit and come back again here. I mean, one of the things that we witnessed, in fact, there was our tribal fault lines were brought to the fore. There was this back and forth, as to where does that leave us as a people, moving forward? This is just 2023. We have a long way to go.
Okay, so I will address this part, and I would say that it is something that nobody should be proud to associate him or herself with right now in 2023. But however, it's very clear that during campaign and election period, there's always these tribal issues that comes up in different places, not just in Lagos. I think it's peculiar to the Nigerian political space. Now, the particular one in Lagos, I'll put it this way. You do not, I condemn violence in every sense of it. I do not in any way support this, never. And I feel that from INEC to the security agencies, we should do better. Even as a people, we should do better. Now, but you do not call someone an illegitimate child and expect them to react objectively. There's a difference between giving a response and having a reaction. To every action, there's an equal reaction. Now, if someone looks at you, Victor, and calls you an illegitimate child, whoever had said that to you would not expect you to give a very objective or a calm response. You might be tempted to react. I think that's what we saw in Lagos. That's what we saw play out at the gubernatorial, because we had a pocket of violence in a few places. Like I mentioned, Koshofe, where I voted, it was peaceful. I don't know.
But we saw in other places that things were.
So we saw like 1, 2, 3 places that we saw things happen, and so when I said that you don't push that kind of narrative. What happened at the presidential election in Lagos? I think because at the when we had the presidential election in Lagos, and it became obvious for the first time, Lagos, the ruling party in Lagos lost its base to opposition. To the opposition. I think the opposition had their celebration too early. I think they had their celebration too early. They were too excited. They like running to the market square too early. And the narrative of we are going to take over Lagos changed everything. Now, the Lagos electorates in themselves became more aware. So like this is going beyond just voting whoever that you may have seen as a right candidate or you have seen as a right candidate. Because whoever is right to you might not be right to me.
So pretty much that
was where this whole tribal angle came into it.
In Lagos.
In Lagos.
Exactly. So let me just quickly go to Hamzat in Abuja. We need to close the show. Hamzat, let me quickly get your reactions on this. You know, before the elections, we've seen the peace committee meeting with presidential candidates, you know, saying, let there be peace, let there be no violence, and they sign all of this. Would you say it was effective during the elections? Quickly.
Commitment in this peace treaty.
Sorry, we lost you for a bit. Can you come again?
So it wasn't, you know, most of them already floated what was in this document that was signed by the peace committee. You know, they even before the elections, look at the campaign rhetorics. Look at campaign day message and even post-election, you know, rhetorics. It is really sad and unfortunate. And Victor, if we're not careful, this would burn each and every one of us. And I want to hope that my generation and the Nigerian people would reflect and take a back step. You know, and we don't talk about religion, ethnicity, region that divides us. Let's talk about issues that affect us. Healthcare, education, access to water, access to job, access to opportunities, and taking Nigeria to greater heights.
I hope that would be the norm, you know, moving forward. But I have to say thank you to you, Hamzat, for joining us on the show from our Abuja studio. Hamzat Lawal, CEO, Connected Development, as well as Kawade Kaede, who joined us via Zoom from New York. Thanks as well for joining us on the show and sharing your thoughts. And also to you, Ayobami Ladipo, CEO of Porsche Classic Media, as well as social commentator. Thanks as well for joining us on the show. Well, that's the show this week. Thank you so very much for watching. We'll leave you with the most videos on our YouTube channel in the past week. Bye for now.
The Chief Justice of Nigeria spotted leaving his office premises for the Jamaat prayers in Abuja after rumors of being in London spread like wildfire kicks off this week's most viewed videos in the past week.
The 2023 general elections.
It's followed by Yaga Africa's executive director maintaining that Nigerians have the right to be angry with the electoral process.
People feel very angry about the way this process has been managed. They have a right to do so.
Wherever people are being afraid of you.
Third spot is taken by the former president, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, lamenting what he describes as Igbophobia.
Friendly to those who are afraid of you. And earn their friendship by being good to them. And that is what we have to do.
I have allotted the DSS.
Up next in second is APC stalwart explaining why he petitioned presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, and his running mate to the DSS.
Mr. President, do not...
While the vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Dati Baba Ahmed, asking the Chief Justice of Nigeria not to inaugurate the president-elect, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, taking the top spot.
CJ and your lordship, do not partake in unconstitutionality. I am taking these risks for the sake of my country. Yes,